Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of the Buffalo Wings. And we are about midway through the 2027 season, and it has been a brutal season in Buffalo. You can see we're on a 10-game losing streak, 0-10 in the month of July, after we were feeling somewhat better about the team following our first winning month of the season in June. Take some solace in the fact that our Pythagorean record should be 5 games better than we really are. That said, there's not a lot that's going right. We have the worst offense in the National League in almost every category. We've got some of the worst defense in the National League. And then our pitching is decidedly mediocre. It is a bit odd. We're fourth in the league in strikeouts, fourth in the league in home runs allowed, and third in the league in pitcher WAR. I think that means we've been a little bit unlucky with the pitching staff, perhaps, but I'm not totally sure how you generate a WAR that's third with the rest of our pitching numbers being generally mediocre. So the season has not gone as planned. Wanted to get this team to 500 this year and was hoping that maybe if we got lucky, we'd be contending for a wild card spot. Clearly, that's not going to happen. We're 23 games below 500, 28 games out in the National League East. We are not in last place because the Phillies are absolutely putrid. But when we look at the wild card standings, we are 14 games out in the wild card race. So clearly not going to be a playoff season. And given that we're not going to be contending this year, we're getting to the point where it's time to start trading away some of the contracts on our team. And other than Ohtani, we don't have any real long-term commitments, so there's not any horrible contracts we want to get out of. But if you are on the wrong side of 30, your spot on the team is definitely in jeopardy. We want to kind of see what we've got with some younger players in our farm system, and we'll talk shortly about some of the trade offers that we have put out there since our last episode. Also do appreciate all the thoughts and comments to how we did in the draft and what we did right, what we did wrong in the draft, and how we should consider proceeding with this team that many of you have shared online over our last couple of episodes. And as bad as we're feeling about our team at the major league level, I do think that not all is lost. Following the draft last month, our minor league system now ranks 6th overall in baseball. We've brought up Deshaun Seifu and Vance Honeycutt, two of the top prospects in our system who are both hitting 300 or higher at the major league level. Ali Ostendorf, who we just picked number 2 overall in the draft, is off to an interesting start in his professional career. 2-0 with a 2.37 ERA in his first 3 starts in rookie ball. 26 strikeouts in 19 innings and 14 hits allowed. All of those things make us feel pretty good. He has allowed 17 walks in those 19 innings, though, so his control has a lot of work to do, but he is preliminarily viewed as the number 22 prospect in baseball. So happy to have him on board. Marte was an international amateur free agent signing a few years ago. Edgar Ojeda, a guy who we got in the draft when he dropped a bit because of concerns about how much money he was looking for. Rodolfo Carmona, another guy at our international complex. And then we now have 7 top 100 prospects. Joe Edwards, who dropped to the second round, we snatched him up at 47th overall, is viewed as the number 94 prospect in baseball, hitting just a $196 with 3 ribbies in his first 56 minor league at-bats in rookie ball. Obviously, a long way to go for him to be a productive player, but do feel like there is some talent in our minor league system. Now it's just a matter of us growing and nourishing and harvesting that talent to maximum effect over the coming seasons, where it can hopefully be helping us in the major leagues in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons. And while we're talking about prospects, time to check on a few guys who we either thought about taking or have had in our system before. Andres Medina, who we traded away to the Phillies this past offseason for Andrew Painter, is still viewed even higher than he was when he was with us as the number 12 prospect in baseball. That said, in rookie ball with the Phillies this year, he's hitting 101, so wouldn't think it would be possible for him to hit worse in rookie ball than he did over his 2 years and 3 stints with teams in our organization, but thus far he is still very challenged with the bat, despite the potentially great glove and really good personality. Josh Blevins is a guy that we considered picking number 1 overall when last season, when we had the number 1 overall pick, and we ended up going with Deshaun Seifu, who we've already talked about a bit instead. Blevins is viewed as the number 33 prospect in baseball, ended up going 10th to the Angels. And he didn't play at all last year, didn't get his contract signed until the rookie league season was over. This year he's hitting .231 with 2 homers in his first 78 professional at-bats. So not off to a rousing start, but certainly you compare it to what someone like Medina has been doing in the minors, and there's at least some signs of life in his bat thus far. And last but not least, Roman Maples, who we had considered taking number 2 this year. When we had the second pick in the draft, we ended up going with Ali Ostendorf instead. Maples ended up getting picked 8th by the Kansas City organization, and he has not been signed yet. So still certainly looks like someone with a very interesting defensive profile and an above-average offensive profile, but he is still not signed by the Royals. Hopefully they can get some playing time with him before the end of the season, or who knows, maybe he'll end up back in the draft again next year. And the way the season is going for our Buffalo Wings, he could be in the mix of guys for us to pick next year if Kansas City's unable to sign him. And I mentioned that we are now at a point with this team where we are considering trading away anyone who's not in our long-term plans, especially if they're making some money and or on the wrong side of 30. And we've got a couple proposed trades out there. Garrett Crochet, the left-handed pitcher who we picked up in the Rule 5 draft, we've got an offer out to Pittsburgh for him. Nakajima, the import from Japan, who we picked up, and although he has hit for some power, hasn't got the batting average over 200 and is striking out an inordinate amount of time. He also recently turned 30, so we've got an offer out to the White Sox for him. And then we're also trying to pick up catcher Jonah Heim, guy who's got a decent bat, pretty good defensively, making big money. We've thrown in Gavin Grayovac, who was our second-round pick in our first draft back in 2023, to get discussions started with Pittsburgh on that front. But if we're able to bring Jonah Heim on board, that could allow us to try to move on from Christian Vasquez, another guy whose long-term and short-term roster spot with us is definitely in jeopardy, is the second baseman / shortstop Tommy Edman, who's in the final year of a two-year contract. He's 32 years old. Haven't officially dealt him yet, kind of waiting on Edman and Vasquez. Obviously, we haven't officially dealt any of these guys yet. We've submitted offers to the other team, going to hear back what they have to say, and obviously I'll talk more about exactly who we're giving up and exactly who we're potentially giving if those talks come to any fruition. But could be moving on from Crochet and Nakajima in the near term, and Vasquez and Edman potentially over the next 2.5 weeks or so until we get to the trade deadline. And it looks like we've got a no way and a two almosts on the trade offers we made. Trying to get Jonah Heim from Pittsburgh, as we talked about. He's making pretty big money, almost $17 million over the next couple years. The Rangers already have 25% of it retained. We tried to get the Pirates to retain 70% of what was left, and they said no. Heim would give us a good personality in the clubhouse, really good catcher ability, and a respectable-ish bat. I think I'm going to keep trying to work on something with him, because if we can bring him on board, even if he's making a decent amount of money, that lets us get Vasquez off the books potentially. Grayovac is a guy who's got a little pop in the bat. He's got a lot of potential defensive versatility. We recently promoted him to Double A. He hit .317 with 12 homers and 142 at-bats and high A ball for us at Jamestown. And he's hitting .276 with 4 homers in his first 29 at-bats, Double A Utica. So not a big-time prospect, probably more of a fourth outfielder utility guy on a really good team. But with that good home run power and the ability to play a lot of different positions, even including catcher, I think there is some value here. Clearly, we'll have to do a little bit more, and we'll have to take on more of Heim's contract to potentially bring him on board, but may keep working on something there. And when I shopped the other two players, Nakajima and Crochet, I was pleasantly surprised with the quality of players that came up in the shop list. But as we know in OOTP 24, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can actually get those players from the teams. So interesting to see whether these almosts are, throwing a scrub and the deal is done, or these almosts are, throwing the top prospect in your system and the deal is done. So we'll check in first with Pittsburgh on the deal for Crochet. Good left-handed pitcher, but making almost $9 million, and there's a team option for $9 million next year. And he's been pretty bad this season with 43 hits and 18 walks allowed in 33 2/3 innings, 1-3 record, 5.61 ERA, below replacement level. So just not somebody that we need. And we can get minor league shortstop Tommy Troy in return. Just a utility infielder as far as I'm concerned. He has played a little bit with Pittsburgh this year, hitting below 200. But a guy who's capable of playing a number of positions on the field competent-ishly, with a competent-ish potential bat that's not a complete embarrassment. So viewing him more as a utility guy, 4A guy. He's got 2 option years left. So now it's just a question of how much more we have to add in. And it does look like they're willing to take just about anybody with him. So I think we can get Crochet off the books. That's honestly as much what this is about than anything else. But it looks like they're looking for older prospects, most of whom are relatively mediocre. So should be able to get something done there. The Chicago trade is the one I'm really interested in, because I was pretty impressed with the reliever that we could potentially get there. And it looks like a similar crew here of non-prospects to get the deal done. So I think we're going to get something done here. Romesh Tasuku Nakajima, guy we signed for $10 million. We owe him $11 next year before the team options kick in. He's on the wrong side of 30 now. And as I said, he does have 14 homers and 306 at-bats, but he's also struck out 124 times and is hitting just a $173 below replacement level, despite all those home runs and despite the fact that he is excellent at drawing walks. When we initially scouted him, we kind of thought the contact and the gap power could both be 50-ish. Obviously, they haven't reached that, and at 30 years old, with no speed, mediocre to bad defense, I just don't think this is a guy that we want to be building around for the long term. So I'd rather open up that money, the 11 million we were going to potentially have to pay him next year, and we can use that to take on some additional salary and trade now, take on some additional salary and trade in the off season, and or use it to go after free agents. And we can get the 24-year-old reliever Emerson Talavera to kind of build this trade around. And I think he's a potentially really interesting right-handed reliever. He's got a 3-pitch arsenal. If his stamina was a little higher, could definitely try to start him. Could still start him then or use him as an opener or something, but you know I'm not going to use him as an opener if you've been watching. But in his major league career so far, he's been pretty productive. Very small sample size, admittedly, but a 3.12 ERA, 29 strikeouts, and 26 innings pitched at the major league level. Only 66 days of service time, so he's making the major league minimum this year and 2 more years after that. I think it's largely addition by subtraction. Gives us a solid young reliever to build around for the next few years. More importantly, gets the remainder of 10 million off the books this year, gets 11 million off the books for a guy who's going to be turning 31 next season off the books also. I can't say it doesn't seem like it was a mistake to sign Nakajima to the amount that we did. I thought for a proven veteran player coming over from Japan, particularly with that home run power and that eye, that it was going to be a great combination, and it just hasn't turned out that way. As I said, despite the great power, despite the number of walks he's drawing, he's still a below replacement level type player. He's on the wrong side of 30 now after his recent birthday. Just not somebody that I think we're going to be building around, especially with the fact that we've recently made the decision to bring up Vance Honeycutt, who can not only play the outfield but can also play first base. I think he's more potentially in our long-term plans as a first baseman. That'll also let us potentially get Nolan Jones some more playing time. And then if we do move on from Nakajima, we'll be able to finally call Nick York back up from AAA, guy who hit 292 in the majors last year and has actually absolutely been raking in AAA this year since we had to put him down there in terms of a shuffle with the numbers. So I feel like this trade makes a lot of sense from us. I don't think it hurts our offense to bring York up and move on from Nakajima. It saves us some money, and we get a young reliever who could play an important role in our pen for the next several seasons. So we're going to see who we need to throw into both of these deals to get them done, and then maybe try to revisit things with the Pirates on Jonah Heim. And kind of an interesting thing here with the players who can get the deal done. As you can see, they're all guys in their mid to late 20s who are still in our minor league system. As we kind of glanced at them earlier, they're half-star prospects at this point, so certainly people that I'm going to be happy to throw in. But this does kind of reinforce one of the things that I do while building my minor league system. Those of you who have watched me in the past know I focus on players with really good personalities that hopefully will help the guys around them who are the real prospects develop. And it looks like those players do have some value in trade, because when we go through the guys that Chicago and Pittsburgh were willing to accept, you can see Blake Evans, captain personality, some great traits, even though he's a 27-year-old who's really not that good at baseball at this point. Noah Bailey, another guy, high leadership, high loyalty. Brandon Coons, leadership, loyalty, work ethic, intelligence. Just kind of grab any of these guys and it's the same story. Brad Van Asdlen, spark plug personality, leadership, loyalty, adaptability, work ethic. So other teams do value these guys with good personalities, and I've got enough of them in my system that I don't mind throwing them in to get these trades done. So we've added Roberto Pena into the trade with Chicago. Thank you, Nakajima, for coming on board. But we are going to trade you for Emerson Talavera. Going to open up almost $4 million for us this year. And then obviously we're going to get the $11 million off the books next year. So we're going to go ahead and complete that trade. Similarly, if we go back here to Pittsburgh, we are going to put, I think, Isaiah Campa. No. I think I'll go back to Blake Evans. He's obviously, love the captain personality, but 27-year-old who's in A-ball and 0 for 5 this year, just not playing a very important role on the team. And I think we do have other captain personalities in A-ball, so we can get rid of him. So we will add Blake Evans in. Pittsburgh will do the deal. Thanks, Crochet, for coming on board. We're going to save $3.7 million this year, and we're not going to, obviously we weren't going to exercise that team option for $9 million. At least we've got a 4A infielder who can be sent to the minors for the next couple seasons in fill-in if we do have some injuries as a utility infielder for us. Maybe he also develops into someone a little bit better. So we're going to go ahead and complete that trade as well. We have opened up some money now, particularly for next season, which is a positive thing for a team that's 33 and 56 and starting to worry more about next year than this season. And it will work out well with the 2 spots that we opened up. As I said, we are going to bring Nick York back up now. So that'll give us another good youngish bat. Get him back in the mix at the major league level. We are going to put Talavera right onto the roster to replace Crochet. And Tommy Troy is going to go into AAA for us. But we do need to put him on the 40-man first. And it looks like our manager, our bench coach, I am the manager. I need to keep reminding myself I am playing as GM and manager these days rather than GM only. Our bench coach likes Talavera, going to put him right into a setup role. So interesting to see how the 24-year-old will perform for us. Hopefully, as I said, he will be a guy that we can build this bullpen around for the next several seasons. Moving on from Crochet does leave us with just one lefty in the bullpen, Javier Atencio, since we had moved Brandon Williamson into the rotation as our 5th starter a couple months ago at this point. So that's potentially an issue that we'll need to address next season. Probably want to bring on at least 1, if not 2 more lefties into the bullpen in this offseason. But again, we are 33 and 56 right now. If we lose a game or 2 over the course of the rest of the season because we're missing a lefty arm in the bullpen, probably not the biggest issue. And now returning to the deal to potentially bring Jonah Heim on board. Charrington says he wants us to make the offer more appealing. Right now, I'm not going to go crazy offering big-time additional player. I'll take what they need to retain on Jonah Heim down by 10% to 60%. And if there's a middling prospect we can offer, I might throw in another guy in addition to Grayovac to at least give him something to hopefully think about. So as I mentioned, we cut what they need to retain on Jonah Heim from 70% to 60%, which should make it marginally more positive. We also threw in starting pitching prospect Chris Bailey, not really a starting pitching prospect. He's a 19-year-old picked in the 9th round last season, hasn't made it out of rookie ball and hasn't performed well in rookie ball. Question is his stuff. His movement and control should both be good enough. His arsenal just is not that impressive. He throws in the high 80s, does have a good personality, so maybe they ascribe a little bit of value to that. We'll at least submit the offer and see what the Pirates have to say about that. And we're still no way with the Pirates, so not getting much traction there. I would like to have a really good defensive catcher for the next couple years, and Heim has a respectable bat. The obvious way to respond would be to also throw in our catcher, but I believe I tried this yesterday before filming this episode, and they wanted no part of Vasquez contract. Although if we retain, it doesn't seem like ownership or our assistant GM thinks that Vasquez is going to really add much to the deal. But we'll cut Heim down another 5%. Say that we'll pay every bit of Vasquez's salary this year. We've got no commitment to him next year. Could that tempt the Pirates with a nice defensive catcher, captain personality, hitting 262 this year, replaces Heim for them because they are marginally in the playoff race at this point. Actually, they're more than marginally. They're the final wild card team. So they're in a big battle for the wild card, but that's probably why they don't. Actually, I think the reason I came up with Heim is that he is on the trade block. So maybe throwing in Vasquez and paying all his money does let us get Heim on board. We'll keep Heim at 60% going forward if we're paying all the money for Vasquez this year. I don't think they'll do this, but I'm going to keep trying. Actually, adding in Vasquez did move us a little bit because although it's still a no way, there are players we could add in to get the deal done. Now, we're not going to give them Andrew Painter, and we're not going to give them one of the top prospects in our system, Vance Honeycutt, but we are closer than we were before. So we're going to see if there's another decent-ish prospect that we can add in that might move this thing closer to the finish line. And I'm probably at the point where I'm losing perspective as far as the value in the deal, and I'm just a deal junkie, and I want to get the deal done. So I've added in Henry Allen. You may remember him. He was our first-round pick in 2024. 21-year-old who's only made it up to A-ball, hitting 266, 7 homers, 12 doubles, and 312 at-bats in A-ball, 730 OPS, but a negative WAR on the season. Best case scenario, he's a little bit above average bat who doesn't bring a lot to the table defensively, speed-wise, bunting-wise. Good personality, but not a big-time prospect in our system at this point. I don't think he's going to... Well, obviously, he's not going to be enough to get the deal done since there were only 2 very important guys in our system who would have gotten the deal done. But hopefully this moves us a step closer to potentially being able to bring on a catcher who could be our guy for the next couple seasons at that position in a more cost-effective way than Vasquez was this year, although we're keeping the Vasquez money because we don't really need the money for this year right now. So we'll submit that, and we'll see if we get any closer. And that only moved the needle a tiny bit. Now we could throw in Deshaun Seifu and get the deal done. So I don't think we want to do that. So we may have to come down a little bit in terms of the money that they're keeping on Heim. We'll knock that down to 50% and see what the Pirates think of that. And knocking it down to 50% doesn't get the deal done. He says he thinks we're close, but it's still the 3 same players that get the deal done. I'm willing to probably add in one more prospect-ish kind of player who's not a big-time prospect. But for 32-year-old Heim, who's making good money and honestly only signed for one more year after this one, while I'd like to have catcher settled for the next season and a half, I don't feel like we have to chase that hard for it. And we've added in another prospect, Jorge Resendez, who's a guy who was an international free agent signing a couple years ago. He looks like he's probably about ready to move up to A ball, hitting 283 in his third season in rookie ball this year. But he's 21 years old. Best case scenario, he's a little bit above average defensively. Do like the personality, do like the durability. He's listed as the 198th prospect in baseball. Putting him into the deal makes our assistant GM say that we need more. So I'm actually going to put the retention for Heim up a notch to 55, see what they have to say. I don't think this gets it done, and I think we probably just move on. But at least we gave it a try. And it's still just the same three guys that get the deal done. So I'm not going to go crazy. I guess the only thing to see would be if we take Vasquez out. If we take Vasquez out, our assistant GM says it's not in our best interest. I guess that's the last thing for me to look at. I thought they were viewing Vasquez positively, but let's just check and make sure. Yeah, it looks like Vasquez was really not having any impact. So we've got Vasquez to be our catcher this year. I think bringing Heim on board could have potentially given us, well, would have potentially given us a really good major league catcher for next year. But we don't have to pay a wacky price for it. And I think we're getting to that point. You know, as I said, Heim is on the trade block. They're trying to get rid of him. Maybe we can revisit it again in a week or so. As we've been going through all this, you see that we actually took 3 out of 4 against Miami. We did end up losing another game to get to 11 in a row, but now we've won 3 in a row against the Marlins at home. And we've got the Phillies, the last place team, and the Red Sox on the road this upcoming week. As we get closer to the trade deadline, I think it's time to pivot and see what, if anything, we can get for Mr. Tommy Edman right now. When I shopped him a week or so ago in Game Time, there were some interesting offers potentially out there. Hopefully there's still something compelling that we can maybe get for Tommy Edman as we continue with this mini youth movement here in 2027 with Buffalo. And I've kind of pivoted a little bit. I did do a search to see what we could get for Edman straight up, but now I'm back to trying to use Edman to get Jonah Heim. I've probably become a bit obsessed with him over the course of this episode. We've got Resendez and Grayovac, who were in the deal before with Edman, along with them retaining a good chunk of his contract. They say we're almost there, but they're still looking for big-time prospects in return, so we're really, quite honestly, not that close. But if we take it down to 55%, and we'll add Chris Bailey back in, our GM says we should ask for more. Let's see what Pittsburgh says. They're asking for different prospects, but still good prospects. The catcher, Samuel Basallo, who, although I don't like his glove, is a potential real interesting bat at catcher who could also play some first base for us. Hitting 270 with 22 homers in Double A this year. He's a left-handed hitting catcher. A lot of interesting things with him. So I don't think I want to give him up, but I think we're getting close-ish. And we've got it to the point where we can almost make a deal. And there's some guys who we would throw in to get it done. The issue is that we've added Henry Allen into the trade also, so we're almost back to where we were before. Henry Allen, the former #1 first-round draft pick, Tommy Edman, Jorge Resendiz, international amateur free agent signing, Gavin Grayovac, former second-round pick, as well as Chris Bailey, who was a 9th-round pick. Don't think he's going to amount to much. But Heim, with them keeping 50%, and then the fact that the Rangers already have 25% of his contract, means we've got him for next season at a little over $4 million, which is a really nice number for us for an excellent defensive catcher who's got a productive-ish major league bat. So I think I may look to see if they'll retain just a little bit more money, but I think that with the guys that they're looking for now, we can probably get this deal done by including Edman in it, who will miss his glove, but he's going to be 33 next season. He's hitting fine this year, 253 average. He's in his zone that he's been in the last couple of years, in the 80s in terms of his OPS plus. But not a guy that we're going to be building around for the long term. Not that Heim is, but Heim at least solves our catcher issue next year with an excellent defensive catcher at a good price, and gives us more time to hopefully find a long-term answer for that catching position, but at least we don't need to worry about it next season. And we're definitely giving up a lot, potentially, with the draft capital in the international amateur free agent money that we've invested in some of these guys. But when I look at all of them, they're backup outfielders, borderline major league starters that we're giving up. If they fully develop at this point, which is no guarantee either. So it's a lot in terms of prospects for a guy to have for a year and a half. That said, I do think with the pitching staff that we're building that, although this year's been a brutal failure, we could potentially still be fighting for 500 and maybe fighting for a wild card spot next year. And having someone like Jonah Heim on board, who's a productive-ish major league hitter, good personality with the clubhouse, with a great glove, I think is a big step in a good direction for us. So we're going to add the catcher Maver Borges into the deal, 25-year-old who's in rookie ball. He's just organizational depth, never going to hit enough to be a big-time major leaguer at this point. If I could click properly. So we've added Maver Borges. That gets the deal done, but we're not going to be that easy on Ben Cherington. We're going to try to get them to retain just a little bit more of his contract by putting Borges in. We'll see what he has to say. And he says almost there, looking for another body. If he's looking for a crappy body, we'll throw something in. But it looks like he's looking for real players still. We'll go back to the deal from yesterday, add in Borges, and keep the retention at 50%. Go ahead and complete the trade, and we are done. The fans are not happy that Edman's gone, but the fans are happy that Heim is on board. Fan interest still 100 or higher after that trade, so we've added ourselves a catcher, And we've gotten rid of another guy who's in his 30s. And with the departure of Edman and bringing Heim on board, we did send down Israel Pineda, our backup catcher, but we're going to be looking to trade Vasquez now, see if we can get anything for him. We'll also bring Khalil Watson up as a middle infielder, utility infielder for us, and start getting a little more playing time for some of the youngsters. The Seifus and the Mades, obviously, but a little more playing time for the likes of Nick York, Eric Pena, maybe even Johnny DeLuca, Nolan Jones, a little more playing time for him also, although at 29 he's really not a youngster anymore. And Christian Vasquez, with that big contract, does not have much value. If we retain 90% of what's left, you can see in terms of prospects, there's not much. We're still going to move on from him, try to get Cameron Cawley, third baseman, 24-year-old, not really a big-time prospect, but he still does have 3 option years left. He is hitting 346 in AAA this year. He's got good speed. He's pretty versatile defensively, high work ethic, so not a bad guy to have in our organization. I don't know what else they may ask for, but we'll go ahead and at least make that offer to the A's. And when I looked at veterans, it was just taking back a big, bad contract to get Vasquez off the books. So given that we only have him on our books for another 2.5 months anyways, think it makes sense to at least get someone to be in our minor league system, even if we have to eat some of the money this year. Not going to have any impact on our salary situation next season, so might as well get a tiny bit of value for him if at all possible. And we did just lose to Boston, which ended a nice streak by us where we had won 7 in a row after that long 11-game losing streak. So we've gotten a little bit more respectable. The sweep of the Phillies hopefully helps ensure that we won't be in last place this year. Obviously, would love to win the final game of the series against the Red Sox. Taking a look at the standings, we're still 26 out, so a brutal year, but 7-3 in our last 10, and we're up 6 games on the Phillies right now for last place in the NL East. Unfortunately, we do have an injury situation now that we've been sent away. Our second baseman and Kevin Made, the young shortstop, out for 5 to 6 weeks with elbow inflammation. He also missed some time at the beginning of this year, so a bit of a fractured season for the young shortstop. So Made is going to hit the injured list. That probably means we could bring up a veteran like a David Fletcher, Thairo Estrada, Kevin Biggio, who's in our minor league system at AAA. But realistically, we'll probably bring up Tommy Troy, the guy that we just traded for a week and a half ago at this point. Give him a little major league experience and start trying to figure out between Tommy Troy and the recently promoted Khalil Watson, which one of them is potentially in our medium-term plans as a potential utility infielder for us. And it looks like we've got a deal done for Vasquez. We're going to throw in the pitcher Dahan Batista, who is a 27-year-old with a torn labrum, out 8 months, and he's organizational filler at this point. We have to keep 90% of Vasquez's contract, but at least we get a tiny amount off this year. Obviously have no commitment to him next year. We get Cawley in return, and it lets us bring Pineda back up as our backup catcher to Jonah Heim. So we are going to go ahead and add in Batista, complete the trade, and the fans not happy that we've moved on from Vasquez. Players disappointed that we've moved on from Vasquez as well, but we were going to be moving on from him at the end of this season anyways. We still do have with Nolan Jones a captain personality who's getting a bit more playing time now. You can see fan interest is still at 100 or above, even moving on from Vasquez. So I think it was the right thing to do, and we've now put ourselves in a situation where we've gotten rid of four guys in their late 20s and early to late 30s, some of whom were signed to contracts next season, to free up some money, get the team a little younger. And obviously, it's paid off in the very small sample size, with the team playing better over the last week or so. And we did end up winning the rubber game on the road at Boston. So good news there. We've won 3 consecutive series, and 2 of them were on the road. We've got 3 more at Cleveland, and then a couple games at home against the Cubs before we finish this month of July. Don't think that there's going to be too much left for us to do as we get closer to the trade deadline. Obviously, it's been very busy trading away Vasquez, trading away Edman, trading away also Nakajima and Crochet. So 28-year-old Nakajima, 28-year-old Crochet, 30-year-old Nakajima, 32-year-old Edman, and 36-year-old Vasquez are all off the team now. A bit of a youth movement, a bit of a cost-cutting exercise. And as it turns out, the team's been playing a little better on the field as well. When I look at our salary obligations for next year now, Ohtani and Bieber and Heim are the guys with the bigger numbers who are in their 30s. Mike Baumann is arbitration eligible. It's conceivable we look to move on from him in the offseason. Tyler McGill not making a ton of money in his 30s. And then other than that, it's all guys who are in their 20s. So we've gotten younger. I don't know if we've gotten better. We're playing better on the field, and we've gotten younger, and we've opened up a little bit of financial flexibility for this coming off season. So I think we've achieved what we needed to achieve with the players that we have on board at this point. And we've now made it past the trade deadline to August 1st. We did finally lose a series on the road, dropping 2 out of 3 in Cleveland, but we did take the first 2 here in Chicago, both by shutouts. 5-0 victory behind Andrew Painter. Nice to see a good performance from him. Complete game shutout, improves his record to 5-11. Only 2 hits and 1 walk allowed with 12 strikeouts. So Painter with a really nice performance. And then a 1-0 win yesterday. Shane Bieber gave us 6 innings, allowing only 2 hits and striking out 6. So definitely performed much better over the second half of the month of July. Obviously, when you make it to July 15th and you haven't won a single game, not hard to do better over the second half of the month. Taking a look at the team statistics, ended up going 11-14 in the month. So given, again, that we lost 11 games in a row to start the month, we actually ended up salvaging our second best winning percentage for a month over the course of the year, which is kind of shocking. The batting is still bad. The pitching is getting to be middle of the pack, though. 6th in the league in runs allowed, so we're actually better than the middle of the pack there, but you can see 7th, 8th in a lot of the pitching categories. Still doing really well in terms of not allowing home runs and striking out a lot of batters, and we're still 4 games below our Pythagorean expectations. So feeling somewhat better about the team right now, and also feeling better that we've opened up a little bit of financial flexibility for us next off season. Take a quick look at the pitching staff. Bieber, All-Star, 8-4, 2.08 ERA. He remains a big-time acquisition. Ohtani, although he did make the All-Star game, have to consider it a little bit disappointing to be 7-9 with a 4.17 ERA. That said, his Sierra is 2.67. His BABIP a little higher than it's been the last couple years. His WHIP, perhaps not surprisingly, also a little bit higher. His quality start percentage is down, but still probably has the stuff to be a big-time pitcher for us the next few years. Painter likely coming off of his best game of the year with that shutout. 5-11, 4.75 ERA, does have the Sierra down to 4.01. Hopefully, he's gotten himself right, and hopefully having the excellent defensive catcher Jonah Heim behind the plate is helping. Sean Sullivan's still not good, and then Brandon Williamson has been pretty good as a fifth starter for us since we moved him there. Very small sample size for Emerson Talavera, who we picked up in the trade, but has not allowed a run over 4 1/3 innings. Been striking out some guys. So the bullpen looks respectable right now. The starting pitching is borderline respectable. Clearly, it's the offense that is the concern for us. We'll check in on a couple guys. Vance Honeycutt now hitting 304 over 112 at-bats with 5 homers since he came up. So he continues to do his job. Deshaun Seifu, the batting average down to 273 over 143 at-bats, is 15 for 18, stealing bases. Pretty average-ish in terms of his OPS plus and his WRC plus. But he's got excellent relationships with both our bench coach and our hitting coach. They're also excellent at teaching and mentoring and helping with development and mechanics. So I think 23 years old, hopefully they can extract the last bit of improvement that we think could happen with him. Other than that, check in on a couple of key guys on the team. Jace Barofin, our first round pick in the history of the Buffalo franchise, hitting 247 this year with 16 homers through 388 at bats. You can see his OPS plus and his WRC plus are closer to average-ish this year, so he's regressed a little bit. Take a quick look at Jonah Heim since he came over. Obviously a small sample size, but only 3 for his first 20 at-bats. We're hoping that he is a productive major league bat, but clearly his catcher ability is the primary reason that we've got him on board. And taking a look at the standings now, still in 7th place, but we're 9 up on the Phillies, so hopefully we'll avoid the basement. Don't think that the wild card is a practical thing to be thinking about, but we are only 10 out at this point, but a ton of teams that we would need to overcome in the last couple of months of the season. Quite honestly, just kind of hoping that we play respectable ball the next couple of months. Real happy that we kind of salvaged the month of July with the really good play over the last half of the month after that miserable start to the month. And hopefully the pitching can get to a point where it's clearly a strength rather than just kind of average. And hopefully we can improve our offense a little bit. We're up to 14th in the league in runs scored. Would clearly like to be better than that. When I think about what we want to accomplish in August and September, stay healthy, get the young guys playing time, and would like to see us play over 500 over the last 2 months of the season. Maybe asking a bit much, but given that we had a winning record in June, and we've been really good since we started getting rid of some of those older players. Want to be going into the off-season feeling like we're coming from maybe not necessarily a position of strength, but a position where we are at least content with where we are for the 2027 season. And playing 500 or better ball over the last 2 months of the season would get me feeling a lot better about things than we have over the first 4 months of the season. So that will be the goal. We'll see how we do with that in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.